Hey everyone, welcome. It is Virtual Dalcroze Meetup number 92, I think, which is so funny. We've done 92 of these, 91 of these, and today gets to be the 92nd. I'm Stephen Neely. I'm your co-host. I'm here with with all kinds of dear friends, actually. Pretty much everybody here are dear friends of mine, and I'm just thrilled to get to do a little VDM, a little Virtual Dalcroze Meetup. We've been going for about 5 years, and people keep showing up and people keep watching the videos after the fact. And so we are thrilled to have you all join us, whether you're live or watching the recording after. It is February, it's February 10th, and I'm on the East Coast. I'm in Pittsburgh. And we've got two really cool friends to just tell us a little bit about their work. So for anybody who's maybe new to the community, the Virtual Dalcroze Meetup hosts three kinds of events. We host master classes where we invite master teachers from around the world to share with us for 90 minutes. One-off lessons where they get to go deep for an hour and a half and tell us what they were doing. We just finished a great class with Timothy Caldwell, and Michael Schnack's class is coming up next. We're really thrilled about that. And then we do short courses, which are either 3 or 6 events that happen in a short period of time over 2 or 6 weeks, where again, a master teacher picks a topic and they get to go deep with us over a couple settings. We just finished a course with Gregory Risto in solfege, and we have some new things coming up in that. And then the thing that we started with are these meetups, and the meetups don't require prior registration, and there's no exchanging of any money. It's really just a sharing session. Sometimes I word it as a study group when I'm trying to tell people what we do, but the basic deal is we're looking for colleagues from around the world who have a practice of some sort, and we invite them to come and just tell us a little bit about what do they do. Almost all of the presenters somehow bump into either Dalcroze specific or music and movement a little more broadly, and it can go really quite broad. So we've got all sorts of friends who have come in and presented over the 92, 91 prior meetups, and today we've got two great ones. Before we get into all that, our normal routine is to go into breakout rooms and introduce ourselves to each other. But with a small group like we have today, I think maybe we'll just give everybody a chance to say hi really fast. So we always say our name and where we're from, and who do we teach, or who have we taught, or who might we teach, or who do we hang out with. You don't have to be a teacher to be here. So I'll start, and I think we'll let Potheni and Tessa introduce themselves when they present, and that'll be the sort of easy way after we introduce them. So I'm Stephen Neely. I'm in Pittsburgh. I teach at Carnegie Mellon University. My main crowd are university students, but I've had the pleasure of working with all sorts of people. This last week, I was doing a Eurythmics for Wellness at like a wellness retreat in Mexico with a bunch of 65-year-olds, give or take 20 years. And so we had a grand time trying to figure all that out. So that's me. I'm going to hand it over to Chris. Chris, where are you at? What do you do?
Hey everybody, I'm Chris. I happen to just be sitting around in Vermont. I teach college and we don't start until February 17th. What a life.
Hey,
So I'm skiing, I'm playing this guitar, and I'm staying away from the news.
there you
And
go.
I love Dalcroze. Happy to be here.
So good to have you. Selma?
There. Hi, I'm in Toronto, Canada. I used to teach at York University in the Faculty of Fine Arts, Department of Dance. I do research on histories of Dalcroze teachers and people. And I'm actually just in the midst of getting ready to do a workshop for the Dalcroze Canada weekend situation. I'm having a lot of fun actually working with Cheng Feng Lin on our plan. We have a kind of joint plan for my part of it. Um, so I do still teach on special occasions. That's what I live for, actually. That's really fun.
And it is special. We have featured Selma in a couple ways over the years and are so thrilled to have her be a major part of our community. Hey, Teo, it's always great to see you.
Hi, I'm Teo. I study at CMU in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I plan to teach teenagers and adults.
Very good. Thank you. And hi, Berta. I think we've seen you before, but I don't think I know you. So will you tell us where you are?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Uh, I am Berta and I live in Tennessee, uh, right down below Knoxville. And although I do not teach Dalcroze alone, I love the concepts and I've been following it for years. And so I teach from infants up through fifth grade, and I love it.
Wonderful. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Hi, Polly. We saw your note in the chat, but if you'll introduce yourself live, we'd be happy to hear you.
Hi everyone, I'm in the UK and I'm a music therapist, and I'm also uh, working with Jacqueline Van on the Canadian project in care. We're working in a care home in England doing Dalcroze, providing Dalcroze eurythmics for there's a Canadian research project. So we're doing that together. And I'm not currently doing any other Dalcroze teaching at the moment. But I usually teach children, but I'm doing more music therapy now.
Wonderful. And we, while we are named the virtual Dalcroze meetup, just for the greater public who maybe bumps into this video, we are extremely interested in working with musicians and teachers of any background and any specialization. And we have actually we today will be a good example of where the idea of music therapy would not in any way need to be specifically Dalcroze for Dalcrozians to be interested in it. And so we're very happy to have you. Thanks so much, Polly. Emma, do we have other announcements before we introduce our friends? Um,
No, if it's
uh,
okay, I'll say who I am.
oh, yes, please. I'm sorry. Yes, of course.
Not a big deal if I don't. I'm Emma. I'm honored to be a co-host of the virtual Dalcroze Meetup. I'm working on a PhD looking at integrating movement and body practices into inclusive music education spaces. And two of the lovely humans in this room are helping guide me, which is really great to be here with you guys and learn more about everything that's going on out there. I am honored to teach all the ages. Probably my favorite are the tiniest of humans, but this weekend I got to go work with flute players in Arkansas, and it was so much fun. And I often forget how wonderful it is to be in a room making music with people. And one of the lovely things about this work is that no matter whether you brand yourself Dalcroze or otherwise, I think that's the thread that connects a lot of us, is that we really enjoy connecting and creating and learning through various means in rooms with people through this language. So I'm just really grateful I get to be here today. I will segue into maybe one announcement or two announcements. We've put the agenda in the chat. We'll do it again. We have some upcoming masterclasses and short courses. Michael Schnack from Austria, Vienna, is going to be with us, giving a masterclass on March 8th and 9th. And then we'll be having a Dalcroze Essentials Eurythmics in Primary Schools with Fabian Bautz from Switzerland. Neither one of those are to be missed. They're lovely, unique opportunities to get to work with incredible educators. I've never had a class with Michael. I'm really excited myself. And Fabian always finds a new way to do a thing that you've never thought possible in the most lovely, calm way ever. Master.
Yeah, these guys are going to be great.
So,
And Michael's class is on the 8th or the 9th, depending on where you live in the world. So it's not both days. It just depends what time zone you're in. So be sure and check out Michael and Fabian's specific times. The easiest way to do that is to subscribe to the Virtual Dalcroze mailing list and subscribe to the Virtual Dalcroze calendar. And if you subscribe to the calendar, what's great about it is it converts all the days and times into your time zone. So you don't have to do any math to figure out when and where everything is. It just pops up in your time zone. So if you go to virtualdalcroze.org, you can find that. Emma, do you want to introduce our first guest?
oh my goodness, that means I have to actually have the agenda up in front of me.
It's
Oh,
Poteni
yes.
first.
Oh, we are just so excited to welcome Pathini, who is currently a I'm going to say it wrong. You are a professor now, but I don't know the different orders of assistant, associate, full assistant professor, I believe, just hired at the University of Luxembourg. She's a wonderful educator, an amazing music therapist. We're so excited to learn more about the work that you're doing and the research that you're doing. Her talk is titled Musical Interactions for Presence, Participation, and Achievement of All Children, and we would like to welcome you. The floor is yours.
Very good. Pratheni, you have like 7 or 8 or whatever minutes you need. If it's running any long at all, I'll give you a heads up, but I'm sure you're fine. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Wonderful people. It's usually in this community, actually. Okay, so should I share my screen? Is
You're
it
welcome
okay?
to. Yep.
I have a couple of slides. I don't think we need all of them, but just as a visual to support. The title, I understand, is a little bit loaded, so no, I don't think I'm gonna get to everything, but it actually comes from the idea that while I actually, that should be important to mention, right? That I actually use music with young children, and I was originally trained as a music educator for young children, and then as a music therapist, and I was never I was only part of the Kodai community, not the Delcros community in any case. But I do think that when we work with young children, essentially what we do is that we use our body, and a lot of it comes through the voice. So part of my work is actually looking into these types of interactions between young children with peers and adults in the room, how we may support them. And because of my background as a music therapist, I'm also interested in how we include everybody in the group and how we make sure that everyone can have a good experience. So some of my guiding questions have always been, how do young children learn? And what do we want them to learn and why? And then what exactly is our role and why is that? But when I look into music, I actually look at it as an everyday experience of care and support. So essentially what I'm wondering is what is happening before, during, and after the interactions. How do young children participate? And then what is the role of music during these participations? And I'm sure you all know, and I'm not preaching to the choir here, that it's part of their daily lives and daily routines. It's not something new. So then what is our role? Are we adding music to the existing experiences and to the existing engagement modes? Or are we actually using or bringing up new music? And what type of music is this? And why, while we work with young children? And then, of course, what would be our goal? So if we're thinking about teaching and learning in ECEC, and I'm only using teaching because it is important for young children that they develop new skills and they acquire new skills. But then it has a broader, it is a broader idea of me. It's not about teaching specific knowledge or content knowledge, but more about exposing them to the world. So it's broader than skills. It is also about social and emotional development and gains within their environment, which will then lead to probably more academic gains if this is important within some educational contexts. So then we really want to have them curious about stuff and gain their attention, and then address, if we're discussing inclusive settings and inclusive practices, we are sure to have a range of interests and preferences and personal learning styles and personal music styles, essentially, that all comes back and that all circles around music and their musical expressions. So what I'm actually thinking is that while activities are so central to their lives and what they are doing, and they actually use the whole body to participate in this, we create a space, or a space is already there for us to explore further, within which young children engage with each other and they engage with the world. So again, music is actually the way to go, and music is already there for them. And I've worked a lot over the past years with voice and singing. That includes pre-composed songs or children's songs or nursery rhymes, but also the vocalizations of young children and any type of sounds or voice games that they might have. And I see that as a social process. So I see that as part of communication and interaction. And I see that as part of their development as well. So how they are and how they exist within this music environment is actually it's actually a glimpse into their own world and how they develop and how they learn and where they are at emotionally. And so, in essence, if I would have an idea of how to bring all this together, I'm actually thinking that at the heart of it is always to bring to children meaningful social interactions. And then when we do that through music and through the use of songs, we actually improve our access or enrich access, enhance access for all children, regardless of their level of abilities, but we also bring balance. But for this to happen, essentially, we need to be more cognizant or more aware of what our intentions are, what we would like to achieve, and also about the learning experiences which we deem important for these young children. So in essence, that would be really a way to think about singing with young children and dancing or moving or being with them within this musical experience, that we allow them to develop different levels. We offer a new context, or we enrich an existing context for engaging with the world and with others, and that will eventually support learning for them or for all of them, hopefully at their own pace. So, that would be it.
That's wonderful. Oh, there's
I
so
hope
much
it was
there.
on time, right?
Oh, you're more than on time. You're as nailing it right there. Thank you so much. And there's lots to get to there. I'm so pleased actually to have this conversation today because I think a lot of times in the traditional music ed conversations, many of the things that you're saying are sort of understood but not actually talked about. And so I'm really excited to have that. All right, well, before we get into all of that, I want to introduce Tessa Kaslowitz. Tessa's a long friend of mine. We go way back. And Tessa's had a couple cool lives as a musician and teacher, and has ended up currently in a position where she has a little bit of power and a little bit of say, and I really think a lot of impact and certainly huge potential for impact in what she's doing. So we asked that she'd come and just tell us a little bit. And Tessa, you've got an easy 8 minutes here if you want, or 10 if you need. And everyone, Tessa Kaslowitz. I'll let you introduce what you do.
Hi. Thanks you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I am in Salt Lake City, Utah, but I work remote for an organization called Youth Villages, where I am our music integration manager. And so I'm also a board certified music therapist, and I am bringing music to a system, to an organization. And our organization is a national nonprofit in the US that serves children and families with emotional and behavioral challenges. So some are involved in Department of Child Services or at risk of being separated from their families. They might be involved in foster care or juvenile justice. So we work both in homes, trying to keep the family unit together, providing services and therapeutic support. But we also have some residential facilities in both Tennessee and in Georgia for those of the youth across the country that maybe cannot remain in their home safely. And so we have a lot of different programs and a lot of different things that we do. But in my role, it is how we bring more music to all of the different things that we do. So I work fully remote and doing this with the support of lots of volunteer staff who are on the ground with our kids and our families. But I kind of wear two different hats. And so one of those hats is strictly music therapy. And I've started our first music therapy service within our organization at our residential facility in Tennessee. So we have one music therapist that serves about 200 youth doing groups. And our youth they range in age from about 10 to 17. And these are youth that spend 6 to 9 months in our care, sometimes longer if they don't have placement to go home to. But they live with us, they go to school with us. We provide therapy in various forms, counseling, rec therapy, lots of different services, but music therapy is now added to their list, and I help supervise the on-the-ground music therapist doing that work. We hope to continue to expand that work and hire additional music therapists to serve all of our kids in residential care, which is about 500 youth in these facilities that we have. Um, but we have 5,000 employees across our organization. We are in 29 states in various forms and different programs. And so the other hat that I wear is I lead an initiative in our organization called The Sound. And my goal with The Sound is to help our organization more intentionally use music in various ways. It looks really different depending on what program the staff might work for, or which youth or young adult or family they might be working with. But it is to get into the water of the work that we do and to help them find ways that work for them to utilize music. So it, like I said, it looks really different, but some of this can be asking staff to think about, are you playing any background music in your therapeutic session or in your time with your family? Are you playing any activities or games or anything to get the youth regulated and focused before you provide the work that you're providing? We provide resources and training materials. We invite others to come into our space and train our staff in various musical activities and games. I help coordinate field trips and workshops and performances for our youth in our residential facilities to try to expose them to parts of music that they maybe have never experienced. Some of our youth have never seen live music before, coming from really different backgrounds. All of them come from all over the country and various traumatic experiences in their past that have led them to our care. So trying to just expose them to new things that they might not have seen before. So we've had Brazilian trio of musicians come perform for them. We take them to recording studios to make their own beats and do work on songwriting. And we're always looking for new partnerships and work within the community. But also it can be things like finding free resources in the communities where our staff are working with youth across the country to see what they might have access to when they leave our care. And if they have an interest in music, but maybe they've never explored it, how can we help support that work? So that's what it kind of looks like on the ground with the staff who are working directly with families and youth. But also, because I'm trying to impact our whole organization, we're also targeting how staff use music with each other. So we're also adding things like lobby music to our buildings. We're hosting musical events for our staff, for bonding, for morale, for joy in their workday. We're also teaching skills like using music in your meetings and trainings and events. So if they're inviting 50 people into a room for an 8-hour day, are you using music in any way to enhance that experience? We teach things like brain breaks and icebreakers and background music and technology to support all of that, so that we're not just saying, go do music, good luck, but we also are trying to help support them in learning those skills. But basically, our goal with the sound is to bring more awareness to how meaningful music is, both for those that we are working with and for the staff that work at our organization, and to be more thoughtful about those ways that we can increase music access to those that we care for. So those are kind of my two different hats. Music therapy lane is the more clinical side, and then the sound is more general music use.
That is outstanding. Wonderful. Well, it's a really fortunate pairing, I think, to have Poteni and Tessa with us on the same day. I mean, we try to see who we can line up and get some complementary ideas going. But these are two really, they're two sort of sides of a whole big thing. Before I just sort of take over and start ranting, I have lots of things that I could say, and I'm thinking about the protocol here at the BDM is we took roughly a half an hour, 25 minutes to say hi and then hear some ideas about some colleagues' their practices and what they do, how they bump into us. And now we've got 20, 25 minutes to sort of talk about it. So anybody have any questions or comments, something that struck you or a gap that you were hoping someone would talk a little bit more about before I take in? Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, thank you to Poteni and Tessa for both sharing. And my first question would be about I guess to both of you, but particularly pertaining in what you were sharing with your goals for the classroom. I was wondering how the repertoire itself gets selected. Are we talking about compositions? Are we talking about buying a whole curriculum? Are these just folk songs that are kind of the obvious choice for that community? Or maybe my question is flawed.
Not at all. I think it actually describes my whole process so far, like the past 10 years. When I started, I actually went with repertoire. And I thought, oh, that's really the best music I could bring in the classroom with these young children. And I was thinking along cultural background, language, linguistic background, time of the day, because this in early childhood, I'm sure if someone is not very familiar, just let me know, but I'm sure you are. Time of the day and things like that. And then most of my work was working with the teacher in the class, in the room, or someone in the room, and then trying to relate that to the goals they had for the day or some goals they had for the kids. So sometimes it would be the teachers, sometimes it would be the speech therapist, anyone and everyone who might be willing to spend time with me. And after a couple of years, that ended up in the form of a curriculum for the day or for the week or for the theme of the month, something like that. But the more the years go by, I actually reflect more on the children's music themselves, the music they bring in with them, and the music they use in a more spontaneous way. So nowadays, I try to stay away from this type of repertoire frame of work, although I usually ask what they deem important and what songs they use or what might be important to them. But I'm just trying to spend some time first and listen carefully to the sound environment and what is happening. This is why I'm really in between. There is a concept called musical care, and there are music therapists in this group of. We're actually reflecting a lot of whether we are bringing music or whether we're adding music or actually reinventing the music that already exists in a space, and how we can do that in a more deliberate way. Like music is happening anyway, but how do we hear that? Are we present enough when it is happening? And especially for young children, it's everything and anything at every single moment. So how can we use that if use is not, for lack of a better word? So yeah. But in the end of the day, at the practical level, it can be a mix of things. So when I'm working with my students, I actually say, how about you have a repertoire or you develop some ideas about songs and how you might use them? And then moving from that, what would be a more independent and more open interaction with the children or adults or any type of participant anyway, through the music, as music is happening to us as part of our daily life in a way. I hope this answers a little bit, or
If I could just follow up quickly,
yeah.
I don't find it easy. I feel like children can name their favorite foods, but simply asking them their favorite music, they aren't actually
No.
they're not reliable witnesses.
Yeah, of course they are not. You're right. But the adults somehow they seem to say, "Oh, we like singing this or that in the day," and then I might ask them, "What would you like to sing?" So it's not like, "What's your favorite song?" That's really a dead end answer. You can get. I mean, I usually get weird responses, to be honest, and songs I don't know, so that's awkward. so yeah, so I honestly I avoid that. Also because I was trained in the States, so I worked a lot there, and I'm Greek, and also I grew up in Greece, and I work in Europe, in Luxembourg. So essentially, my background or my cultural heritage does not always align with my population, my group of kids. So yeah, I avoid that question. I just ask the school or, more general ideas, but not the kids. Yeah.
Can I just ask one more for Pathani, and then I have things for both of you. But Pathani, can you, if you said it, I'm sorry, I didn't catch. Could you say when you're the work that you're describing, is that music therapy work or is that research work, or is therapy and research always combined in your world, like your specific world? Because we know you are a fancy professor type who coaches PhD students and does all the that side of things. So in what you're describing, what hats are you wearing there? Or is it always research? Is it always therapy? Is it one or the other? Are we,
Yeah.
can you be more, just tell me again?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot to say that actually. This is mostly research work, but but for the last more than 10 years, I've been working as a researcher. But that in my research, there are always lines of inclusive education and music therapy. So I actually have a hard time myself to tell when I'm wearing this hat or the other hat. But the main line is that I avoid to be the person that will go into a setting and do things for the teacher. I just try to spend time and allow the other adults in charge to follow, or like doing a co-coaching team
Yeah,
together.
very
Co-teaming.
good.
Yeah. But yeah, this is mostly experiences from my research throughout the years also. So
Very good.
and
Well,
apologies, I should have said that before.
no, no,
Yeah.
no. And there's no, just for anybody else who's listening, wouldn't need to pick one. Someone is allowed, of course, to be fully both or fully one and not the other, or the other one, or last week I was one, but this week I'm the other. We all have different skill sets, and just depending on our communities that we're working with and what the contract is that got us in the room, we could be in the room for really different reasons. So, but it's really wonderful having a researcher in the meetup today. I'm hoping we get a chance to talk about that a little bit, and it looks like we will. Again, before I take over, who else? Questions? And Bothania and Tessa, you're of course welcome to ask as much as answer. Other ideas? Yeah, Bothania.
Yeah, I was hoping if this is a good time, Tessa, would you mind sharing a little bit from the experience you have from the participants who you actually encourage in your group to use more music or include more music and in non-musical processes? Like you said, I think that was the second part of the work you described. I find it fascinating, by the way, to be the music ambassador. So, but how is it? I am assuming it's well received, but how is this happening?
Yeah, happy to elaborate on that. So
Thank you.
basically, the people that are working with our youth the most, they're not musicians. This is a mix of therapists and recreational therapists, as well as what we call residential staff, or specialists that are working in the community. So it's people who are around our youth day in, day out. They might be the staff that help get them from the place where they're living to the school, or help get them through routine daily care like showers and bedtime and cleaning up their space. And so that is really who I'm targeting the most, because they're with our youth day in, day out for 12-hour shifts. Think about either like a hospital setting or the school day, or even a big mix of both, where they're teaching our youth, they're helping them do all of the things that they're asked to do in their schedule. And so they are not necessarily musical, but they are human that loves music, and teaching them little skills here and there about, hey, if you are helping the youth get ready for the morning and they're waking them up and getting them dressed and ready for their day, can you add music to that in a way that makes the environment feel less, I'm telling you what to do right now, but hey, we have a musical cue that tells us it's time to get ready. Or teaching some of the teachers in our schools on our campus, because we have our own school, can they use music in their classrooms as a timer, as a transitional element, or so some really like hands-on technical small skills like that, but also just in general, can you play music in the background during the time where they get their medication in the nursing station, so that it's a more peaceful, relaxing environment during something that might be uncomfortable or stressful. But we also are teaching them hands-on activities. A lot of these staff lead groups with our youth. And so they're doing things just like games and activities that help build social interaction, better bonding. These youth live together, they go to school together, they're in the same kind of groupings of 10 to 12 kids, teenagers at most of the time, all day, every day for up to maybe even a year. So they're around each other a lot and they might not get along with each other. They're all coming from very different, diverse, traumatic experiences. And now they're in an unfamiliar place with unfamiliar people, having to get care and help find stabilization in their life. So instead of maybe playing a game that day with cards or with cups or whatever game they're trying to design, I've provided resources that are musical games. So where can we sprinkle in more musical elements because we know that the kids love music. We know that it will bring them together and give them more social interaction that's positive to just make their experience and their time with us more enjoyable. But most of like we recently did a training using another organization in Tennessee, where they came in and helped us build this training out. But it's music for everyone, and it's teaching musical skills to non-musicians. And so we did things like rhythm games and body percussion and elements that get them regulated because it is a very dysregulating experience to live in a residential facility around lots of teenagers and other youth. And not be near your family and your friends, and you don't have a cell phone, and you don't have the internet, and you don't have all of the things that a typical teenager or youth would have. And so teaching them regulation skills using music. So what's been challenging, I'd say, in my role too, is doing that and providing music therapy. Well, it's not me personally, but supervising the music therapist and keeping those lanes separate too, and teaching them what is clinical music therapy and what is music use for everyone. And so that's been a fun balancing act at all times. But we've learned our staff and our youth both really love and enjoy music. And what they had been doing was staff will play whatever music the kid wants on the phone, and it's not always appropriate, age appropriate, or context appropriate for the setting. And, or maybe they are watching music videos and things like that, but they weren't doing real tangible music making. We do have a therapeutic drumming program. That is the one way they've been getting music. So they build djembes, they do West African drumming twice a week in our residential facilities. So it's really fun, really great for them. But that was their only lane of music. And so with my role, it's how do we broaden that? How do we give them more in their day to day, but then also provide these other opportunities for different ways of making music. So yeah, lots of staff who do not necessarily have a music background, and teaching them ways that they themselves can be musical with the kids.
Very good. There's like so many things going on right here in this conversation that it's hard to pick out which one to talk about. One that you just kind of bumped into, which wasn't the point of what you were describing, but you definitely mentioned a couple times, has this idea of self-regulation. And I think it maybe bumped into Pathini's slides as well. There was a spot maybe that mentioned this, the idea that music can somehow affect us and hopefully in positive ways. There's a funny wording that I've bumped into a number of times. Maybe Selma will know anything about this. There's some funny wording that in some of the older Dalcroze writings, both Dalcroze and some of his students, where there's this wording that I've always thought was crazy, called if you take part in these courses, it can aid in smoothing the temperament of the child, smoothing the temperament, which I just is not modern wording. We wouldn't use that wording anymore. But every time I bumped into it, and I've read it more than once, I've just always thought, oh, what funny wording. And then you think, okay, well, this is being written in 1930 or 19 whenever, And so like what they don't have any of the like music therapy as a proper study didn't exist. And actually none of the kinds of research that Pathini or the things that Tessa are doing really existed in the common society. And yet from the beginning, music, I have to think probably maybe all music educators, but definitely music and movement and definitely Dalcroze educators, we've always known and always believed that there's more going on here than teaching people a true dotted 8/16 pattern. Like there's something happening here. And so then looking at ways that we can prove it or even isolate it or talk about it is really an interesting set of ideas. So when you were first sharing your first slides, I think it's really wonderful that that the kind of, to me anyway, the way I was reading the slides is that the point doesn't need to be, are you a better musician? Like that often is a result of music classes, but it actually doesn't have to be the only, it wouldn't even have to be the first goal of different musical interactions. You know, there are many other things that we can harvest out of these spaces. And the list is long, not the least of which would be we all can have our temperament smoothed. I personally have the smoothest temperament if I'm in a good class. I'll share with you. I got a link here that you all can after class you can peek into. So I just put it in the chat. Other I don't know. Other thoughts? Pathani, do you want to follow up there? You looked like you were maybe going to say something. No.
I just said, yeah, this is really really relevant, and thank you actually, because there are so many things happening to our body actually just through entrainment, through the rhythmical aspect of music, and sometimes I feel like because I was trained so much with in music programs, and then all of a sudden I was in special education, and it was just shocking to me to realize that not everybody knows about the impact of music, or not everybody follows up through music or with music during different experiences. So sometimes we're like in our own wonderful musical bubble, and we're like, yeah, we know that, we feel better, it supports our group, it's a factor for cohesion. And some people will be wonderful musicians, and some of our students might not be, eventually not even musicians. But yeah, I think it's important to remind that to people outside our wonderful world. So yeah.
Other thoughts? We're actually getting close.
I wanted to piggyback on that a little bit. Pathini, I know we've had conversations also about this idea of like, are we giving an experience or are we teaching? Like, what does that actually mean? Do we have the right to say, I've taught you something? Or have I just shared an experience that I know really well in this musical world with you, which then to me kind of feels like it opens up a space that allows people to really have ownership over the musical experiences that they share with others, that they don't need 17 letters after their name to allow themselves to share a musical experience with another human being in a really deep and wonderful way. So I just wanted to
The
echo that, but also if you had any other thoughts about that, because I feel like Tessa, both you and Plathini are talking a lot about how it is we approach spaces to share these musical experiences and to allow others to have the opportunity to not only understand how important that can be for us in our development or in our ways of communicating, but that we can kind of give over the possibility of that empower that in people.
I would like to speak on that a little bit of that's exactly what we're working on is I'm not there to do this myself. I'm sitting in my kitchen in Salt Lake City, and a lot of the youth that we are trying to impact are in Memphis, Tennessee, or also around the country. But we have just staff who love music that we call sound ambassadors. We have about 100 of them throughout our organization in different places around the country. And that's what their role is, to be that champion for music and having them be that voice to say, can music be added here? Can it be impactful? And I'd say it's really, I'm coming from a different perspective of we're an organization. We're not trying to teach music in any way. We're not really trying to say we should make better musicians or anything like that. But we are, I'm trying, like I said before, getting into the water and just knowing the benefit, that natural benefit of music making and music experience that all of us as human beings experience. And how can that make our organization better? How can it make employees enjoy their day to day more? Even those that are not working with kids at all, but they're an administrator or they're leading trainings and meetings and things like that. But then also for the youth that we work with that really have high needs, how can they, as a human, get the benefit of music? And whether that's from the music therapist or from their staff that just helps them get from point A to point B, that loves music too and can help add it into their day. So we are always thinking about just that general, natural, humanistic experience of interacting with music.
Very good. Other thoughts?
May I just put something in here?
Please.
Okay. A word that hasn't been used but actually is a central theme of this whole conversation is community. And in my experience with working with children, and I've worked with a number of what I call special children over the 40 years that I've been teaching music. I can say without doubt, it is the communal aspect of the group and of participating together in the joy of music making that has the most therapeutic value for the child. I speak from very personal experience because I had a sister with Down syndrome who excelled musically like I have never seen in children of that in Down's children. She was just a phenomenal musician, and I know without a question that that came from the communal aspect of our family life and of the wider community. So I just wanted to put in there that that is something that I consider all the time as I teach is how can I know that Anthony and Stephen speak about this a lot, is how to make the music session into a beautiful experience, the whole into, so that is the challenge of being a music educator, but and to bring the whole together into a communal experience. That's all I wanted to pop in there.
Thank you. Um, Pathani used the word entrainment just a little while ago. And when I think about Dalcroze pedagogy, it really is at the root of pretty much everything we're doing. The class begins only when some kind of entrainment has been established. Without that, the class has yet to really begin, even though the hour may be have struck. We're not in a Dalcroze experience, which from a Dalcrozian's perspective would say we're not really in the music experience, which isn't to take anything away from the kind of music that Tessa's trying to include in her spaces. But the Dalcroze part, or the sort of in the music version, is marked by, or has the prerequisite is, no, there has to be something synced up with something. And at that point, we really tip into now like what's quickly can become profound experience, like a really sort of deeply meaningful thing. And then, but I think it's really great to hear Tessa's experience as well, which is saying, but even just like you could take the edge off if this thing was happening, or you can use it as a cue, or you can use it as a marker, or you can use it to regulate, or you can use like there are so many other ways that don't require the same kind of single-minded commitment that most Dalcroze classrooms would require, where we're all like in the groove. There are lots of other ways to use the music experience, for good. So it's a really nice reminder. Chris, you had a hand up. Do you still know your idea?
Oh, I was just thinking about Tessa's job and like, do you guys think that there's like an identical group of dancers meeting right now, having the same concept, having the same conversation, except not about sound?
What
I,
about
I
motion?
just it makes me wonder like, did we do this to ourselves where we kind of expertized or professionalized music to the point that I guess the common person makes the mistake of thinking music is for an expert to do, and I've been finding that with dance a little bit too, where I won't elaborate, but there's a hazy wall between the two, and I guess I'm just wondering, are people thinking about rhythmic movement and what that does to regulate either the student in Emma's classroom or the student in Tessa's um, living setting?
Uh, I'm sure people are talking about it. I don't know if they're meeting right now, or having as intelligent a conversation as us, but I'm quite sure that there are all sorts of people who are inspired by the arts or inspired by different kinds of, these practices, and then thinking, yeah, where is the Tai Chi special card that could be played in the HR department at my corporation. Like where would be the overlap of those two Venn diagrams? And I think that actually it's worth saying it's actually a very similar kind of attention. We know that there is some value, some multiple values in what music does in our day to day. And then when we have the opportunity to be very specifically, I am doing a music class with these students, we see that there's, of course, the obvious musical outcomes of they've learned a song and they can perform it, or they know their dotted eighth sixteenth different than their swung quarter eighth, and they're literate in these ways. But then we see the kinds of things that Potheni was putting up on the front slide, that there's just these other benefits that I don't think, at least in the music community, we've done a great job of centering and bragging about and owning, let alone researching and proving, through data. And so I'm just extra excited. And I think Tessa's story here is just showing like, you don't even have to do that. You can just like go freaking make stuff happen and we're going to get some benefit out of it, So if you have a company like Tessa's, a group, organization like Tessa's, and somebody as brilliant as Tessa, who together can be like, we see eye to eye, let's just make stuff happen. Beautiful. And then if we want to convince the next group who doesn't necessarily have Tessa's vision, then having some of Potheni's kind of studies, some research, some proving, some writing and publishing, on like, no, there's stuff happening here, and we've taken the time to sort of rigorously pin it down and be able to demonstrate what's going on. That hopefully is going to sway some more people this direction as well. Nice. The Renee Fleming book. Have you all seen this book? It's really big. I haven't read it yet, but a high school friend of mine, it wrote one of the chapters. Tommy Schweitzer. He and I were in high school musicals together, and he's the music therapist, or one of the music therapists who wrote one of the chapters in that book. Yeah, we got to get Renee to show up to the virtual Dalcroze meetup, obviously.
There's no mention of Dalcroze in the whole book. It's complete. There's a big section of dance for Parkinson's, and there's a lot of music and movement, but the actual word Dalcroze does not come into it, which I think is such a shame.
It's how it is. This is our life. We're such a small community overall, but we're mighty. If you could just make it to the meetup, then you would know. But I'm excited. That book is on my pile. I just haven't gotten that low in my pile yet to get to it.
Yeah, I know.
While I'm just looking this direction, we want to introduce Veronica Boleski. If you've maybe not been here before, Veronica is our other co-founder, co-host. Veronica, how's things going in Boston?
Good. We're hopefully getting out of our cold snap, but weather's going to dump a little bit of snow tonight first, and then maybe it'll be a little bit warmer. So we'll see.
That's good. It's wonderful
Great
to
to
see
see you all. Nice
The
to just listen.
well, we've got 5 minutes here. Any other questions or comments that you want to sort of jump in on?
I think just one thing that you all reminded me of, Berto, when you said community, and then Stephen, you might have said about being professional and having to be professional, or maybe that was Chris. I can't remember who said it, but I recently went to a music therapy conference where one of the music therapists does really focus on community music making and building community through music. And what she talked about was she has African roots, and she was saying, I grew up knowing that music is in all of us and it's just human, and we should stop leaving music making to the professionals. And so it's tapping into that natural experience that we all have. And I mean, it's easy to talk about when you come from that lens of being professional, but I think tapping into what people naturally should do, and they don't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be all the right notes, and it's more about just that experience of being in that community with other people making music, whether it's singing or dance or playing instruments or just listening together. But they don't have to be professional to get the benefit from it.
Absolutely. The story as I like to retell it, I tell this to my students. When Jacques Dalcroze was coming up and got his first gig at the conservatory, and in Geneva in 1903 or whenever it was. He had never taken Eurythmics, of course. It didn't exist at the time. And he met his young students who were all supposedly outstanding musicians, but very quickly realized they were missing, they had gaps in their education. There were things he expected to see that he wasn't seeing out of them. And at that point, he was at a crossroads where he could have gone the one way, which any of us who have been to music school, we've all witnessed this, where the professor or the conductor or the whoever just yells at the person and kicks them off the stage and says, basically, you're not good enough to be here. You need to go away. You're not talented enough to be in my studio. Or you could choose the opposite, which is say, actually, maybe the problem isn't you, maybe the problem's me and the kind of instruction that we have inherited in the things that we're doing, and how sort of like precious and beautiful that he chose the second, rather than kicking anybody out and blaming them for their bad training or their bad instinct and their bad whatever. He turned it the opposite and said, well, actually, maybe we're doing a bad job of this. To me, built into all of that story is that we are all, as Dalcrozians, we approach every class believing deeply everyone here is rhythmic, everyone here has music in them. And if they're not showing me something I was hoping to see today, the problem is very likely mine. I need to like come at this from another angle and start to see. And so I love to remind myself that I am rhythmic, and like my inhale, my exhale, my walking gait, my heart, my thumping heart, all of that are examples of my own musicianship, my innate musicianship right there, ready to sort of work with, as are my students. And so there's an early Dalcroze book, like I forget, 1912 or something. It's called The Importance of Being Rhythmic, was the title of the early book that talks about Jacques Dalcroze's work. And again, it's not the importance of learning to be rhythmic. It's the importance of that you are rhythmic and that you would notice it. And then we all have a common basis to start with. Yeah, Veronica.
I was talking to my students last week. They were maybe age 8 to 10. And for some reason, they were asking me if I was famous as a musician, because I think
And
I
I
was
hope
like,
you said you are, because we all
I don't know,
talk
whatever.
about you all the
They were
time.
just like talking about musicians and who is a musician. What does it mean to be a musician in the way our culture says it? And I said something like, well, I mean, you guys are, now we're going to learn how to write the 2 time sign because this is what musicians do for each other. And they're like, wait, we're musicians? And I was like, well, of course you are. Like, but it made me realize, like, I think that about them all the time, that they're musicians. And yet they don't see themselves as musicians, even though, like, most of these kids have performed at probably like 6 or 7 concerts by now and, like, are taking Eurythmics and lessons and are, like, quite literate musicians. So it just made me think about how do I talk about that? How do I just, like, call them musicians more often so that they can change their definition of, because I think for them it's like you gotta, be like top 5 artist on Spotify and be, on the Super Bowl halftime show. Like,
Right. No, it's really valuable. It's such a good perspective. And the way we frame, the mindset we come to with, or the way we frame our work for ourselves, and then so powerful the way we treat the students and the way we describe them, the way we reinforce them, such powerful work. I think that's a great way to end all of this. Friends, you are rhythmic, you are musical, and you're powerful. Holy crap. My music teacher changed my life in 4th grade, turned it upside down and set me on a path that wouldn't have happened otherwise. So thank you for the work that you do. We really want to thank Potheni and Tessa for sharing. It's such a value to us to get to learn from you and just to know what other people are doing and remind us what is possible and ways to do the good work. So thank you. Thank you to all of our friends for being here. And we hope to see you at the master class with Michael Schnack that's coming up, and Fabian's elementary pedagogy work. He's fabulous, fabulous Fabian, and we are just thrilled to be featuring him again. So join the mailing list and join the calendar at virtualdalcroze.org. And we'll see everybody back
And
soon.
if you have any friends who couldn't otherwise join us, we have scholarships. Integral Steps really likes to support people to be able to come. So please invite your friends. Tell your neighbors.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.